And we are live. It's another Freedom Friday, and you are still not free. But hopefully, by the end of this show, you will be freer than you were than when you began. I'm Chris Stewart. I'm here with my brother Sharif El Mekki, the wise one. Sharif, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Great to be here. Good to see you.
Are you?
Love the hat. Glad people did that.
The hat vote. Well, it's a good place to start, man, because here we are. That's what today's show is about. Today's show is about Freedom Friday, period, just so that everybody know and new people watching is about discussing issues of Black education, Black history, and Black politics that leads to our freedom, leads to our autonomy. And basically, this is a way for us to make sense of the world so that we can keep striving for peace and for freedom, for our peace and our freedom. This is a good week to do it because we just had a major election. We're still waiting for the results, but I'm getting pings.
I'm sure Stewart will be, right back. But I'm sure what he's about to talk about is the pinging on the.
Sorry about that.
About no worries. You left off at ping. What are you getting pinged on?
Yeah. I'm getting a whole bunch of pings into my messages of people telling me that it's over, that it's that Philadelphia and others have pretty much given every signal that we're going to land where we need to land, type of thing. So anyways, here's what I want to say at the beginning of this show, because this show could be about a lot of different things. I think the way that we planned it, we were going to talk about the election results, and we were going to talk a little bit about NGOs, philanthropy, funding in our space. But what I think what I should do is reframe the show, Sharif, and say basically this show should be about truth and reconciliation. And in truth and in reconciliation process, truth comes before reconciliation. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of calls right now about healing and let's just get back to good and let's be bipartisan. And let's see all sides. Let's set a table. Let's have a picnic. Let's join hands. Let's sing We Shall Overcome. And as a Christian, I actually am deeply committed to that as the right thing to do. As a Black Christian, I'm deeply committed to use the mind that God gave me to understand that we make bad deals after bad situations by doing that too quickly every single time. After Reconstruction, we tried to heal too quickly, and then we fell into Jim Crow. After Jim Crow, we passed a few laws and we tried to heal too quickly, and we dropped into white flight and the deterioration of our cities and the dropping out of our economic system in Black communities or whatnot. With Obama, we tried to jump too quickly to post-racial politics, and then we get Trump. So here we are. Trump is still in the White House lying, inciting violence, inciting racism, inciting a bad economy and everything that could be helpful for us. And we're already, in some cases, talking about healing. So before we get there, Brother Sharif, why don't we just make this show about telling the truths that need to be told? And family, in the comments, I want you all to get savage today about telling the truth in the comments about the state of the world. If this were the time where we're going to, get savage, get sassy, bougie, whatever. Anyways, so that's what I want y'all to do in the comments here. Before we were to move on, family, what would y'all say? Put it in the comments. Before we move on, what are some of the savage truths that need to be told before we move on? That's what the question I want to open up with. And I'll give it to you first, Sharif. What do you think are some of the savage truths that would have to be told before we start healing and moving on and talking about reconciliation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is recognizing how many times they've lied to us. What has been done in the past, in the recent past. Listen, we know what the foundations are, but let's talk about yesterday. Let's talk about how many different times, our people were sold out. Ishmael Jimenez up in Philly, he tweeted earlier today, like, once again, Black folks are going to help, tip the scales in election. And historically, we've been given the empty symbolism after it as a reward for showing up. And so I think, one truth of that is like how the how the levers that could lead to justice continue to be used for injustice, how people continue to divert funds away from our communities and back into their pockets. Their coffers are getting filled by the minute. And, there's a lack of honesty around that, whether it's school funding, whether it's infrastructure within cities, whether the racism that's emblematic of the outcomes that we receive, of how they participate in the illiteracy rates of our community's children, all of that, so there's some prerequisites for us to have this healing. And just as you said, truth has to come before that reconciliation, justice has to come before that peace. So, there's some prerequisites.
No justice, no peace.
Hey, that's my girl's favorite chant. They're like, I'm like, it's time to go to bed. No justice, no peace.
Right. Well, Zakiya Sankara Jabbar says people aren't ready for her truth. She said people get emotional. So that means you have to put this, Sister Zakiya, you have to put this in the comments because we want to know what that is exactly. If it makes people emotional, yeah, let's hear this. Conveying Culture put Biden drove mass incarceration of Black people. I get it. I've heard this over and over again. I don't believe it. Actually, I think it's nonsense. He wrote a bill in which he corrected most of that bill, and that bill contained many things in it. And yes, it is true that it had the consequence of creating a system of over-policing and over-incarceration and those things. But Biden didn't single-handedly do that. So if you want to throw out some bad apples who had a hand in that, Bernie Sanders signed that bill, the Black Caucus signed that bill, the Black mayors nationally signed that bill. You have a whole bunch of people to take out, right? And at the same time, the person that we are trying to get out of the White House right now was doing nothing for Black people except for discriminating against them in housing and being the son of a person who got arrested at a Klan rally. So I get it, conveying culture. It is a truth that has to be told, though, because right now, this is what has to happen, is that Biden has to have people like Zakiya and Conveying Culture and others who will never let up on anything you do from this point forward that looks like mass incarceration, that looks like over policing, that looks like the wrong attitude about police will not go unseen. Right. That's just he's not without accountability. He has to be accountable from day one today. And let's be real. Truths be told. Kamala's record on criminal justice isn't fantastic. So we got two people in the White House. If we're just telling savage truths, if we're just telling savage truths right now, we got two people potentially in the White House who are going to have to be watched. Zakiya has brought up a truth constantly. She's been the champion who's brought up this truth over and over again, is right now we're possibly about to see some dragging of Black men for not voting the right way. Right. This idea that, so many of them broke off and supported Trump. That's a truth that needs to be told, because some of us aren't going to put up with that. Some of us are a little bit tired of the only way that we could be valuable is when we're dead lying in the street and someone can slap a hashtag on us. So that's going to be a problem. That's a savage truth that needs to be told right now. Black people aren't going to be the scapegoat. Black people are the only thing that are saving America right now. Right. Literally, we've been through 4 years of a racist sexual assaulter who has been fostering white supremacy and fomenting hatred against people of color with the Muslims and the Chinese and the Kung Flu and the Squad and women and BLM. Even in his platinum plan for Black people, platinum plan. Did you see that? Did you read his platinum plan for Black people? No. I had to go back and read it. So it had a lot of nothing in it. It was a nothing burger. The whole thing was a big fat nothing burger. It was like a nothing burger with a side order of nothingness. But there was one in there where it says one of the things he'll do for the Black community is prosecute the KKK and Antifa.
And does it prosecute them while they're standing by, or at some other time? Like how does that work?
Standing down, blah blah blah. Zakiya says this is literally the mass incarceration ticket. Again, I don't believe in that. I think people get stuck in like what you did 40 years ago is exactly what you're doing right now. and what you did for the last 10 years and the last 20 years and what you're going to do in the next 10 years or whatnot. I just don't think that ever works out to be true. I mean, if so, we'll never have a president, right? Because I haven't found a president yet that doesn't have an objectionable record when they come into office.
I don't know if you even reach that level in political power in this country without being objectionable
in some way.
Yeah.
Like, this is true. This is true. Let's see. Conveying Culture says the United States needs to stop gaslighting Black folks. Woo! Now this is a T-shirt.
It's all in your mind. This doesn't happen. We're all equal.
We're all equal. You know, it's starting already with this healing nonsense. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, you know, I have had several white people who look, even some who work in Philly, and say, you know what, like, the work that I need to do is not actually in Philly. It's with my family. It's in the other counties, you know, outside of the southeastern and kind of eastern corridor of Pennsylvania, right? And so, like, you know, I hadn't heard that before, you know, where they're saying like, hey, you know, I reposted something, you know, that I wrote a few years ago about like, what could white people do, you know, and one of the things I said is like, get your people, like that is your primary responsibility. Like, your responsibility is to get your folks, because again and again and again, you know, it's not that they wanted, you know, people are like, oh, how do they want 4 more years? They don't want 4 more years of Trump. They want a lifetime of that crap.
Ooh.
Like, that's what they want. Like, and that's what they fight for. And that's what they vote for. It's not a 4-year thing. It's not an 8 years of Trump. This is what they want to pass on to the next generation of their families. So what are we going to pass on to ours?
And they're fighting for it. Let's just be real. They're fighting for it to the bitter end. If Biden, first of all, Biden is not elected president right now. So right now it is that close, and it's been several days since the election. So let's put one truth out there, is that we have had a president for 4 years who has governed by tweet and in all caps and has said crazy stuff constantly all day long, like some crazy uncle up in your attic all day long, who has been the most lying, unprofessional, racist, white supremacist, blame shifting, and in some cases murderous when you think about the COVID response and others, the most incompetent. Now, listen to everything I just said and make him Black, right? Okay, now listen to everything I just said, which we all know. Tell me if I'm lying, Sharif, if any of those things I mentioned are a lie, and now make him Black. And that is white America's problem right now. Their problem is that they will valorize and lionize the most incompetent of white men, and the most qualified of Black people. They will ask you for your birth certificate and make you disown Reverend Wright, even as you're bringing people into the White House that are known anti-Semites, and they're asking Black people to disown Farrakhan. But you, in your White House, you brought in anti-Semites. When there was a march that said Jews will not replace us, you said there were very fine people on both sides. Now make that person Black. Make that president Black, right? Let's stop gaslighting, as Conveying Culture says. Let's stop gaslighting Black people, right? We were pretending as if these things are equal. And they are not. Everybody listening to this with a damn brain has to realize that if Obama did anything that Trump did in the last 4 years, he would have been impeached and replaced already, right?
Man, can you just I can't even wrap my head around, Black person. Yeah, like that. I mean, that would just be. They would look at that as intolerable, and they would talk about all the human. The violations of humanity, where with him, they say, oh, well, you know what? At best, they say, well, he misspoke, or I don't agree with everything he says, or, like I'm voting for him as a politician, not as a person, all of these kind of, just excuses to, continue rabid racism, but it just makes me think of when you look at the history, you talked a little bit about from Reconstruction to, to now. Like it's hard to imagine a time that we've been in this country that Black people didn't have the moral high ground in whatever role it is. When you look at, from enslavement to now, like there's continuous of the Black community highlighting this is the better way. Human rights, this is the better way, and everyone else. And this is why I get really agitated when, other people of color, particularly folks who are immigrant, including the Muslim immigrants who come here and ride on the coattails of Black people who've paved the way for you to be able to wear your kimar. A lot of y'all come over here, then y'all you don't want to wear it because you want to be in the red section of Pennsylvania. But those of you who do, you get here, you ride on the coattails of the Black people who sacrificed everything, life and limb, and then you turn around and vote for this joker. That's the stuff that really pisses me off when we're talking about truth, that people don't recognize this. These are the people that made this a little bit more livable, that made it a little bit more conducive for communities of color. And then we have folks who don't understand that history, and they turn around and stab us in the back, at the same time parroting racist rhetoric. And we see this all the time. I think I tweeted you guys the other day, like, Muslims for Trump, and they were all, Indo-Pak. That's Indian Pakistani for folks who don't know. It's just like, that's not a new phenomenon. This has been ongoing, and so like those are the things, like when you're talking about like that truth, like, we coming at y'all too.
Do you think that possibly with that particular issue, one of the truths that needs to be told about immigrants is that they are coming to a new country and they are attempting to love their new country, like in a way of like that will make them whole, that will make them like, I want to be part of you. I want to be like part of that. That's kind of the responses. You don't want to be the other. So you get there. And the first thing that you figure out in the United States, that one of the most American things ever is to hate Black people.
that's
right.
About
like
that's like the apple pie. Anti-Blackness is that's apple the pie filling in the apple pie. Yeah. Right. Like,
yeah. So if you're an immigrant, you come to the United States and you're like, you don't be a white passing immigrant. Because then you're going to take that pie and you're just going to gobble it all up. You're going to get like some American, you're going to get American flag Speedo and get some like American flag tassels and get the American pie and start eating it all up and whatnot, and doing that whole thing.
They praying like, it's all one generation. Yeah, they praying like one generation. I'm a white American. Our family's a white American.
I'm a step away from being a white American. And the first step there is being Republican.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right. Like, if you find immigrants for Republicans, I don't think they're identifying it in ways of the history of the policies that come out of the Republican Party. I think they're seeing it as the most performative, patriotic thing that they can be part of. To be patriotic and to be fully American is to be wearing a red, white, and blue hat and hating Black people and talking mess about Antifa and BLM.
Man, for so many folks, when we're talking about like, immigrants, a lot of the people, a lot of times it's in, homogeneous countries and groups, right? So, but now you come here, there are people who may not necessarily look like you that you can, right? Like you might have come from a system that implements a caste system or treat impoverished people one way, but they still look like you. You can come here and say, oh, not only are, do they look differently? Like we can pile on with everybody else. It's like those old football huddles, like pile on, like that's what they're doing. And so, when you see that over and over again, listen, human nature, a lot of people want to be, some folks root for the underdog, other folks like just want to attach to the winner. And what's a winner like for white supremacy? Yeah. Listen, they're like, yo, white supremacy is winning. I'm joining that team. Like that's the team I'm joining. They're like, you're not even white. That's all right. I'm joining y'all winning in this battle. And so like those are the folks that we also have to keep check. We got battles on all fronts, but so we have the collaborators, the Uncle Ruckuses. We got the immigrants who are, like saying like, hey, we voting for the white supremacist platform. And then we got folks like 45 and all those jokers across this country, right? And as we talked about before, no matter what, Biden wins, great. Like America once again through Trump showed its soul, and through this voting showed its soul. And I think next step, right? And here's the piece that people really need to be keenly aware of. There's a whole lot of racist Republicans who said, I'm voting for Biden just because I hate Trump so much. I don't care about any of
there's a whole bunch of them. I don't know that. I mean, he picked up votes this time. You know, they're starting to tell that story, but I think they're lying. I think they're lying.
I don't know.
Like they want to say that they voted against them. Some of them got in that box and pulled that same damn lever. Because I'm looking at the numbers. I want to think that they did. You know,
it was more, right? It was, I think 62 million last time, 67 this time for 45. But there's also a group who said like, "Oh, we're never Trumpers." But as soon as this is over, it's like interest converting. They're like, "Yeah, we want him out." It's like when the Tea Party, right? It was internal battles. Like, oh yeah, we want to expel the Tea Party. Doesn't mean that we actually want you all. We don't want everybody to have health care, or we don't want your schools to be funded, or we don't want the infrastructure to be developed, or we don't want any of that. We just want to control the power. We want it to be.
Sharif, you making a point right now that better be captured. You just made me think. I mean, he came in as a destroyer and he ruined regular systems. He made it okay to call Mexicans rapists and to, talk about black countries as shithole countries. Like he took racism the furthest that he did the most on that. So now he gets to leave and the party still gets to benefit from all the people that loved that part of him. But they get to do it with a new air of legitimacy. Like, okay, yeah, he's gone. Right. But we still want to rule in the same way and run on the same. Listen, the Republicans that won, I don't want my friends and family watching this right now. Don't let the Republicans start talking about him in the past tense as if they didn't all win the seats that they just picked up in the House and Senate, running on the same thing that he ran on. Running on ads against Ilhar Oman, the Squad, the radical leftists that are burning down cities. Look at their ads. That's what they ran on. They ran on Trumpism. So don't let them leave him out of the. Oh, he's gone now. So now we're all good. We're all Mitt Romney. No, you're not all Mitt Romney, number one. And Mitt Romney is problematic by himself. Right. So here's what I want to do, fam. Watching this. When they say that a picture is worth 1,000,000 or 1,000 words, whatever they say, don't let Chris be quoting stuff because he gets it wrong all the time. I'm getting to the age where I don't care whatnot. I do not give a damn. So I don't give a damn. Help me understand, family. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, fams in the comments, look at this particular picture, and America's going to argue about this over the next couple of weeks. Tell me what you see in this, anything that they should be clear on. I look at it and it's a mix. There's a jumble. There's different things here. And some of y'all are smarter with some of y'all went through TFA. So I'm just going to be real about this. So some of y'all look at these charts and graphs and stuff like this and make sense to you right away. I have just the obvious reactions to these things. But in the comments, please look at this and tell me what are the things that jump out at you as truths that have to be part of the national conversation. And Sharif, what do you think? You look at this, is there anything that jumps out at you about this?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that jumps out is again, Black people, and I would really caution folks, in Islam, there was a saying by one of our scholars, that those who try to, that sometimes people want to pump up the battles between Sunnis and Shia and all this kind of stuff. And he would say, those who sow discord or attempt to sow discord between Sunni and Shia are neither. And so I would caution, Black people to understand those who sow discord between Black men and Black women are neither. Right. Even if you are neither. You are not amongst us. If you're using this opportunity to sow discord, to talk all this, Black men are the new white women or anything, just absolutely ridiculous that comes out of your mouth. Like, don't do it. Don't fall for it, because that divide and conquer is exactly what they're planning right now for you to start over. Right. And so then the other one, when people talk about we're, all these allies and all this stuff, allyship shows up in booths, in poll, in voting booths. Right. And so when we see that, and a lot of times people say, oh, how do they voting against their interests? How are poor white people voting for their interests, or college, non-college educated voting against their interests, or white women voting against their interests? Don't believe the hype. They're not voting against their interests. They're very much voting for their interests, because white women still benefit from white supremacy, as quiet as it's kept. For some reason, it's almost like it's something different. yes, we're, as white women, we're punished and we succumb to the horrors of white supremacy. Nah, that's your come up. That's always been your come up. And we see that even with, the women's suffrage movement. Like, you aligned with white supremacy instead of aligning with Black women, and Black people around being able to vote. Right. And so there's a long history of this. And so we have to just make sure that we are clear-eyed and not starry-eyed in these situations.
What do you make of the I see that in the comments that Toya put something about Latinx, which I don't know who Latinx is. I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and say Latinos, but Toya, my sister, says that Latinos are not a monolith. What are you making of the Latino vote when it comes to republicanism, and things like they lost ground in Miami-Dade, where Obama and Hillary did very well? Is this like a case of more Latinos are becoming probationary white and starting to sign on to the white wing?
I mean, listen, this is things I've heard from Latino, friends who said, like, yes, some of them are, again, when we talk about, this continuum to whiteness, it's not just, the color of your skin, it's also a mindset. And so, there are groups of folks, again, part of the immigration, part of the wanting to looking at it as a come up, improving your lot, all of this, continues to, and anti-Blackness is also, a part of it, right? When you look at colonialism, ushered in anti-Blackness, enslavement, ushered in anti-Blackness, the white, the white culture that was pushed upon the Taino people in the Caribbean, Latin America, etc., that also produced anti-Blackness. And so again, you see that's a currency that a lot of people love to spend.
What is anti-Blackness?
Anti-Blackness is a currency a lot of people love to spend. And so, this is the situation. And so, and I'm always down with, the Black and brown get down, I think, is really important. But we also have to just make sure that we are, again, being clear and conscious about what we're doing together, and what are our collective interests, and what are the interests of, there's some things that are in the interests of Black people, and other people aren't going to sign on to it. And we have to be understanding that, like, hey, you know what, as we're coming up with these treaties to work together, that there's some issues that we're going to have to discuss and talk about and say, like, hey, you know what, y'all sold us out on this issue, and we're not going to put ourselves in the position to be sold out again. So as Malcolm said, we can't be political chumps. We got to be clear, strategic, and deliberate as we're working with all kinds of people.
Let me ask you a question about what you just said, because I have this idea about racial physics. I believe that, like everything about physics has a place in race when you think about it. And that kind of like, what is it, the unstoppable force and the unmovable object and all that type of stuff, whatever. Right. Or one thing causes another thing. And you just mentioned a little bit about of it. There's always been a white backlash after Black progress. So after emancipation created a new strain of racism that wanted to put Black people back into slavery. And then during Reconstruction, that was kind of like a white backlash on the South losing and blah, blah, blah. And what came after that is a more sophisticated form of always having backlash to Black progress. So there are recent books that have even been written about the Obama years, 8 years. You had white people that were simmering, because it was the first time they ever looked up and they saw that the top power in the United States was a Black face, that they, for the first time, were a little bit vulnerable in a way they've never been vulnerable before, meaning that there was somebody over them at the very top that was not white. And that for them is probably what gave us a birtherist candidate, a candidate who came in with, yeah, that dude ain't even legitimate. He wasn't even born in the United States, and making him illegitimate and all that stuff. So the reason that's my build up to an actual question, which is, so now we have a centrist, a Biden. Biden is known for being very centrist in his career, and working across aisles and both sides. And the Democratic Party, whether people know it or not, has always been a more centrist party. They've never been a radical party. They've been centrist most of the time. So he is kind of like the outgrowth of what actual Democrats are. Like he looks like him. I know there's been a push from the left to try and make Democrats not be old, but they are mostly, and have them not have white hair, but they do, and have them not be centrist, but they are. Like, you know, so a message to my lefties: start a party and shut up, because basically crying about this party for the rest of your life is going to be a long cry. It's going to be a long cry. So keep doing what you want to do, but either shut up or put up, put up or shut up. Start a party. I do believe it's time for a party. But anyways, a new party.
Here.
But if he wasn't a centrist, let's say he was a radical leftist or a more left or a super left thing, and we're talking about momentums, how like things swing in momentums. So we go from an Obama, who was basically a centrist, and that was enough to set the movement in force to give us a Trump.
Yeah.
Right. So then if Trump were to give us a Sanders, I fear what would come with the next after Sanders. Right. Like if it would be way worse than Trump. So it almost seems to me like the better buttress is a centrist. Right. To stop that momentum of the back and forth swing from super left to super right, because the next super right, if these 4 years were any indication, the next super right backlash would be hard to deal with, right? I mean, we have people right now who are carrying guns and surrounding people by themselves on camera in places. And by people, I mean people with Trump flags and American flags and Antifa gear and military gear and shit. So do you think, I guess that's my run up to, do you think a centrist is actually probably a good strategy right now?
Listen, I don't know if there is a good strategy. At the end of the day, I still can't help but to think that, how many millions of people, believe that, is justified to have, their knees or their feet on our necks. Right. And I do agree with you as far as the pendulum and the volatility of the backlash. But I think the backlash is still, even if a centrist shows that there's going to be some progress, even if the centrist speaks, in a way that people say like, wait a minute, you're talking about them like they're human beings, right? That is still, there's still going to be a backlash. And I also would say like, with the reason why we have to hold the centrists accountable is because there were always centrists, throughout the times we've been oppressed, up until today. And what they would tell the radical racists is say like, hey, you know what? It's all right to be racist. Just don't be so loud about it. Be more sophisticated, be overtly kind, but covertly, we all in the same gang, and so those, I totally hear you as far as the pendulum switch. I do think there was just a rash of anger and frustration for Black families being in the White House, sullying their sheets and their walls and their dining room tables. Yeah, I do, 100%. But that doesn't explain almost 70 million people. I think it's something even deeper than that.
You mean 70 people still voting?
Still voting for 45
for white supremacy?
Yeah. 67
Which,
million.
Becomes a problem.
Oh yeah. There's no, so it's pretty much even. And so where are we, like at the end of the day, it's almost even for everybody else. And this is the thing, this is the same stuff. Malcolm said back in the day, like, yo, white folks are pretty much even. They're evenly divided as far as what they want to do. It's really like, their power, they're jostling for power. Some are more vocal about it. Some are more sinister about it. But at the end of the day, like we are, what are we going to do? Because they already said, if they were evenly divided in the 60s with all the, Black Lives Matter in that realm, right? Like, and they're still evenly divided. That's what I mean. Like, yo, white folks, y'all gonna have to, do something about that, because that's like every twin that's born, that's how it is. They are like looking at each other, jostling for power, and we're getting trampled underneath.
I mean, maybe there's some uncomfortable, some truths we need to tell. One is it's not in their best interest to change.
No, they vote for their interest. Absolutely. You're
right.
100%
Like, so
right.
Right now, you and I are having this conversation as people who aren't white. Of course, I was told 3 days ago that I'm white passing. So,
Really?
so I got my ticket out. Yeah, bro, I'm leaving you behind. I got told by somebody on Twitter that I'm white passing because he saw my picture on Twitter and he's like, well, this is a white person saying this. Is like, well, you and I are both white passing. And I thought, well, damn, I'm leaving Sharif behind. I'm free. Damn, Freedom Friday. Shit. I had Freedom Wednesday.
You already got a pass.
Emancipation. Now I can pull up now I can stop worrying about the rest of y'all because I'm white passing. What I was going to say about that is you and I as non-white, one of us white passing, but both of us as non-white people can sit here and have this conversation. But the bottom line is everything in the world is around interests. And it's not in white people's interest to do anything different than they're doing right now, which is to pretend to be good allies, talk a good ally game, get into the polls and vote for people who are for sure never going to take away their safety of the fact that they're fully in control. Even as they have, they befriend people of color, or they come up with fancy, sophisticated arguments for the reason why America is so gerrymandered and why we have so few people of color in the Senate and why we have so few people of color at the executive level in states, meaning governors, why we've had 99.9% white candidates, not candidates, but presidents, and why even in 2020, after an 8-year presidency of a black president, that the best we could do was two white geriatrics. Like your choice was country or Western music. But it's weird. It's just sophisticated. It just ends up like that. It's just very bizarre. But we're the only ones getting gaslighted by the fact that even the most gentle, moderate person that might be friends of ours is in that 70% who voted for there to continually be white control because it's in their interest to do so. So what if that's the case? What if we're in a numerical situation where we may not be able to win? We keep waiting for them to change, for them to do something irrational,
Be radical.
Yeah, to be radical, to buck the system somehow. Is that coming?
In our lifetime, you'll see individuals, but those individuals will be looked at as like, crazy and lunatics, and and they'll be marginalized. At the end of the day, they'll have to decide, wait a minute, am I really going to be ousted and have to live with the folks I claim I stand with, or am I going to kind of go back and be in my comfort zone? I think this is where people start saying, like, they're going to do whatever it is that they're going to do, that they've been doing, since they came and took over this country. What are we going to do for our children, for our communities, for our institutions, for for our own salvation? Like, that's why it always, I believe, ends back to there, that the people that were thinking in that line, they were closest to the right. And I mean the right, to the right way of doing things. And I think often,
you don't mean the right way. You don't mean the right wing.
yeah, exactly. Let's be clear here, And so I think, over and over and over again, we want to kind of look away from it and get mesmerized and seduced by this, this thing that's going to say, like, American society, where it says, hey, we're almost like the people from overseas, the immigrants are like, wow, golden roads and everything and democracy and the Constitution. Well, I got to get there, right? Even though we know better, we're still seduced by that same rhetoric, by that same promise, by that same dream. And so we take our eyes off the ball and we start looking that way, and then we get smacked. Just like, we don't want you. N-word,
Almost the N-word, bro. No such thing as N-word.
I almost said it, but I was like, it doesn't even feel right coming out of my mouth. But that's Gregory, what I think you keep saying.
He'll have a problem. Dick Gregory, the revered actress, does not want you to say the N-word. He wants you to say what the word is or don't say it at all. But anyways, here's something for fam. Fam in the comments, please give me your feedback on this particular thing. Black folks are being offered a couple of different political proposals and options in terms of what should we do next. Sharif was just talking about, well, if this is the way they're going to play the game, how should we play the game? This is what's being proposed. Double down on the Democratic Party and try and fix things within it. We already are there. We have, power within the party, and try and move the party the right direction. So that's option one. Option two is start dividing up our vote. Like start, voting for some Republicans and some libertarians and some others so that no party could take us for granted ever. So option one is double down on what we have. Option two is divide up a little bit and kind of like, play some strategic chess about how we vote. And then the third one is to really start thinking about a new home, period, like a new permanent home, rather than sharecropping on somebody else's party, to start creating new power, new party, maybe starting with young people. Maybe have like the New People's Party or the Freedom People's Party or whatnot, and start running candidates that are maybe not going to win, but are going to put pressure on the system to the point where nobody can disagree with them, or discount them. So option one, option two, option three, fam, in the comments, help me out here. Sharif, what would you think about those three as an option? Option one, double down Democrats. Option two, split it up a little bit, start moving our votes around a little bit. Option three, build a brand new home.
Listen, I hate having to, choose between two things. I'm always,
you don't like standardized tests, do you? See,
I'm like, the answers, both of these, really. So I like the idea of where you are. If you have some position of power, not to vacate that altogether. I don't think that's the right way. I think, you push in, you lean in, you try to do as much as you can and build our own, at the same time. I feel the same way about schools. Like, you know what? Yes, the public school system has not shown great promise for the vast majority of Black children. So we need to flood the system with educators who can actually do something from within, and at the same time build our own institutions. I think it's a very similar situation here. So I often talk about flood the system and build your own at the same time. And I would imagine that I could see that happening, with this party. I think sometimes stuff just got to get hijacked, infected with justice, infected with clear-mindedness, infected with, folks, do the Trojan horse thing, in this joint. You got some folks in there, but you can't put all your eggs in that basket, I believe. And that may be, it may be means if you don't put all your eggs in one basket, sometimes people say like, that means you can't win, right? Because you're diluted. Your efforts are diluted.
Number two is kind of hard, Sheree. Can you really see like any critical mass of Black people really voting for Republicans?
With the stuff that they say and do, they would have to. I just don't see it. I see folks, a discrete group of folks who think their interests, and usually their interest means their bank account aligns with what Republicans say. Nothing else about their lives really aligns to it. That may be one piece, but that's not the majority of Black people.
Yeah. So I mean, I've never voted for a Republican. I could vote for a Republican, though. That was one of the older Republicans, but not the new Republican Party at all. Like
how old?
Well, I mean, I could have voted for Jeb Bush easily. Like I could have easily voted for Jeb Bush. I saw his record as a governor in Florida. I definitely saw his record on education, and it matches mine. And I think he lost because he didn't do racism very well. I mean, he's got a biracial family. He's, anyways, I don't want to get into that because I know my family's going to come for me in the comments. But I'm saying if I had listen, I don't
know much about him. I just know his last name, and I'm like, pass.
Yeah, no, Jeb is awesome. Jeb is amazing in my book. And if you go back to the days of Jack Kemp, who, this is going to sound terrible as I say it, but Jack Kemp was like the white shadow in the Republican Party. He was definitely a liberal Republican or more liberal, moderate Republican who was into like the empowerment zones. And he had played basketball. That's why I said he's like the white shadow. He had played basketball with all Black people. So he was one of the Republicans in the party that wasn't down with the shift towards the Willie Horton stuff, right? He was more he was an economic Republican, like we can build communities and all that stuff. But those times are done. I mean, we got a community we got a new party now that is voted 70 million strong for a dude whose very first word in his campaign was Mexicans are rapists. Mm-hmm. And then he followed that up with some other greatest hits that we've already talked about today. He went after Muslims and women and Asians and everybody except for Israel. He went after everybody else, right? So,
and this is following his whole, what he did as a citizen, right? Like, just so
that's true.
It's a long history. Like, he has many hit records, so to speak.
That's true. This is true. He was the king of the hit records when it came to racism. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, like, listen, I voted for Ralph Nader. Right. I didn't vote for Bill Clinton. I voted for Ralph Nader. I could do that again. I could do a third party. And he was a Green Party. So I voted Green Party candidates.
See, and you always crapping on Green Party. And see,
I'm not ever crapping on Green Party. I'm crapping on the cynicism behind Bernie Sanders, knowing that he should be a Green Party candidate, but he doesn't have the courage of his convictions. He'd rather try and hack the Democratic Party and bitch about it when they don't accept him, when he's not even a Democrat, rather than doing the thing he should do, which is to go and start an independent party and put all of that energy and all those people and all those young people behind a new party altogether.
But
right?
See,
if he had any sense, he would do that next time around. If he had any sense, he's an independent.
Yeah, but I mean, I just said I would tell black people to do the same thing. Get in the Democratic Party, hijack it, try to get them to do what you want.
It's not working.
And do your own thing at the same time,
It's not working. Like, listen, I said this when Trump ran. When Trump ran on the Republican side, give them their credit where credit due. On the Republican side, they had Carly, a woman. They had a black man, 2 Cubans, 2 Latinos running. It was like a hodgepodge of the first time ever of right-wing diversity. On our side, we got Hillary Clinton, right? Like, we came out with Hillary Clinton. They came out with Donald too. I mean, and then this time around, 4 years later, they came out with Joe Biden. So everybody else got furloughed. Cory Booker. Like, listen, this time around, especially after seeing Mayor Pete, how he has like come alive after the thing. Andrew Yang and Mayor Pete thing would have been like something America never seen before. That would have been diversity. All you can imagine, all kinds of diversity in that. We've never had an Asian, like a serious Asian candidate for the presidency or vice presidency. Their politics were like in line with something I could have went with, but their youth and their energy and their vigor, they're that
there's a lot of Yang Gang. I mean, a lot of my friends.
I got a Yang Gang hat in here. Yeah. And it says math on it. Because you know what? When he came out with math as a hat, everything in the world's about math. So I was just like, anyways, but look what we ended up with. We ended up with 2 older white men on both sides of the ticket and no diversity whatsoever. So I think hacking, for me, honestly, that's where I start with it. You said we should hack the current party. That feels hard.
It is hard. I mean, and I'm not 100% like, oh, I think this is the only way. Like, I'm just thinking, like, if you have some power, is it better to do that? One, just numbers wise, what does it look like if you have your own party at what, 13%? Like I think it's all, I agree. It's like, it's all math. Like, what's the practical, strategic, radical, all of that, like, ends up being, when you put it all in the pot, then you have to decide, okay, what's the best thing for, as you would say, the Monday morning question. What's the best thing for next? Yes, we got something else simmering in the back for that long term, for my grandkids, for my children. Well, what happens Monday morning? What happens in 2024? What's the best thing for us to try to do for 2024?
Well, now you're raising a different question. Renee Brown says, what we are missing is who runs the school districts, not Republicans in the majority of Black and brown communities. So this adds like a whole other ripple. Now, I want to jump to that quickly, but before I do, I just want to say this.
I'm sorry, Josh. What was your governor?
Josh is trolling me because also
I forgot about him.
I actually worked on the Jesse
Ventura. Right?
I was a volunteer. I was a volunteer on the Jesse Ventura. So he ran as the Reform Party, And then I was a member of the Reform Party. I was a member of the Independence Party when he transitioned to the Independence Party. And then I was a member of, I voted for a Green Party candidate. So I'm used to like disappointment, but I'm also used to like, look what we learned with, Jesse Ventura. When he ran, he won. And the Democrats and the Republicans were unhappy. They were unhappy for 4 years. Woo! There's probably people that still have not talked to me since supporting Jesse Ventura and being a volunteer on that campaign. And he did a lot of good. I swear he did a lot of good. I never saw anything make Republicans and Democrats more bipartisan than Jesse Ventura.
He brought them together, huh?
He brought them together. Them jokers were ready to work together. They put aside all their
UNITY, run the wrong candidate. UNITY.
I've never seen so many like Republicrats and Democrats. It was like they just merged because they hated that third party so badly.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, that's what I was going to say was that Bernie and the Bernieites and the folks that feel so passionately now have a real option to be able to do a Jesse-like thing, which is if they really did come into a third party, the Democratic Party and to some degree even the Republicans would have to deal with them on a different basis than if they keep trying to do it within the party.
Yeah.
If they keep trying to do it within the Democratic Party, they can be put down and neutralized. If they were on the outside saying, no, we'll run a candidate, and that candidate will take 10% of the vote. Bernie could literally take 10% of the vote, and that will determine any race. That will determine every race. That's a different position of power than trying to do it with inside, like a party that can put you down. I don't know. What do you think about it? Is that a pie in the sky analysis?
I don't think so. I mean, what I was thinking as you were saying that is, I think again back to strategy, cities, states, I think they right now that's the best way to practice this third run thing. Doing it like, okay, which cities can we actually, make a difference, right? That can lead to long term. Because again, if we're talking about 2024 and you back map it, like, okay, we just say like, what did, look at Stacey Abrams, right? Like, what are things that can be done in between? It's always, we talked about this. It's not November 3rd all the time. Sometimes it's November 4th. Right. And with this election, it's all the way to the 6th and the 7th. Who knows when we'll finish? And, someone reminded me this morning that it was December in 2000 when they, declared that Bush was going to be the president. So everybody whenever Pennsylvania and Georgia, PA and GA, whenever that comes out and this, President-elect Biden, be wary about, those three folks that they got on the Supreme Court. Like if it ends up there, like I think it's the one guy, the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania is like, yeah, he's suing everybody. He's suing a ham sandwich right now. but just be wary and,
This is what I want for my people that might vote third party. As a person that has a long history of third party voting, I mean, listen, I'm a libertarian. I'm never going to get a president for a while. It's going to be a while. I need to convince you, Sharif, and a lot of other Black people that libertarianism is actually liberty.
I was almost there, man. When I was in my early 30s, I was almost there. And then I went through some rabbit hole and it was a guy, talking about lizards and snakes. And I was like, you know what? I'm getting off there.
That was the FBI. They put that dude up to that. The FBI ran that dude.
It was lizards, like everybody, all these folks are, I was just like, I was like, wait a minute, are you talking about like the soul, like the inner soul of people? I get the spirituality and people, evil people may take on these different forms and what they were like, no, this is a real I was like, all right, I'm done.
I mean,
it was Rand. What was the father name? Rand or something?
You mean Rand Paul?
Rand Paul, the father. Ron Paul. Yeah. I was reading his stuff. I think he's libertarian, right?
He's Republican libertarian. Yeah, he's really. I mean, he's like a Bernie type. Like Bernie might as well be a Democrat, but doesn't want to be one. And Rand Paul's a Republican, just acting as a libertarian at times. But libertarianism, if we ever did, we should do a show on this, on libertarianism. And I think I'd be happy to learn more. Yeah, we should do that actually, as I think it's the political path to freedom for Black people, and to self-building, nation building, independent liberty, not being over policed, not having not being told what we can put in our bodies, not being told what we can, what freedoms we should have. Obviously being told that as long as you are not doing something that hurts somebody else, the government should stay out of your face and out of your grill. Do they fix potholes? Bro, I grew up in New Orleans. Does the current government fix potholes? How's Philly looking? How's Philly looking?
You
all the streets smooth in Philly?
Don't drive a Lamborghini in Philly.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're going to jack it all up. You have like tires all like this.
I don't care how nice it is. Don't get no low rider in Philly.
So we should probably come back to a show on libertarianism so I could say my piece. But I will say this as a third party voter. You mentioned 2000, Gore and Bush. I have never felt so much hatred in my life. I felt more hatred than I've ever felt as a non-white person. I felt more hatred as a third-party voter in 2000. As somebody who didn't vote for Bush or Gore, I felt more like I just wouldn't mention it. Like all these years later, I'm so scarred, bro. Like all these years later, I'm mentioning it now.
Who was the candidate then?
Oh God, I'd have to go back and remember if it was.
But that's my problem. The third party, they're pretty forgettable, even if you vote for.
No. I mean, it's like I'm getting old, is what it is.
Oh, okay,
because Nader ran more than once,
right?
And I think he ran once with Lenora Fulani, and people should look this up.
I don't remember her.
You don't know Lenora Fulani? Oh my God, that was like a radical pick. So the first time he ran with Lenora Fulani, who's probably one of the most radical Black women that has ever run for vice presidency of the United States ever, or any top office out of New York. And people should look it up. When Ralph Nader ran, he ran with her first, and the second time I think he ran with Winona LaDuke. Winona LaDuke is one of the most kind of seasoned radical American Indian activists in the United States here from my area of the country. And again, another radical pick, like a radical.
He's making a statement.
He was doing more than making a statement. He was like saying, I do not give a damn about what y'all will be for or won't be for. This is what I'm for. And if you go back and look at, what they were. And by the way, I'm a Bush fellow, and Winona LaDuke is a Bush fellow. People should look that up. That's the bomb. But anyways, hatred. I felt me some hatred when I did that. So
people were angry with you for not choosing.
I ruined the world, bro.
The two folks that they put in front of you, basically.
Yeah, like I ruined the world. Don't you know that you just ruined America?
They did say red or blue pill. They didn't say bring another pill to the.
They didn't say a purple pill.
Yeah,
and this wouldn't have even been a purple pill, because a purple pill is a mix between the two fools that already exist. This was a green pill. This was like an earth pill. This was like no, let's get back down to earth. We are human beings, and we're going to have a safe, fair government and economy that doesn't put corporatism above people, blah, blah, blah. That was what the platform was.
Right.
And when that hanging Chad stuff happened and that recount and all that, I'm always saying all this to say, if you're going to vote third party in the future, that's going to happen again. Imagine anybody right now who admits at Thanksgiving that they voted for a third party candidate. Right. Somebody who says, yeah, I voted for Jorgensen in the Libertarian Party. Woo! They're going to kick you out the family. You're going to have to change your last name.
Well, it depends on who wins, right? Like I think you could say it if the rest of your family was with the winner. If the rest of your family was with the loser and you voted third party, I think that's when you're going to get dragged away from the table.
Be done. Maureen Kelleher reminds me. So it was Winona LaDuke in '96. So that was in the middle of the Clinton juggernaut. So you really didn't vote against Clinton.
Yeah.
Right?
See, I wasn't even voting back then.
What?
Not because of an age there. I was just like, I mean, that was there on that time. I was like, I ain't plugging into this. The system is whack. All the work is at the grassroots. You ain't got to worry about them policy folks. They, just do the work in the community. And then I matured.
You're gonna get it worse than the third party voters. At least we voted. The non-voters voted.
Yeah, back then I was a non-voter, and back then I was like, I just didn't see. I'm like, where's the progress being made by whichever of these folks are in those positions? I just didn't see it, and it wasn't until later that I said, you know what, let me use vote as one of the strategies, not the, but one of many. But too many people think. I got turned off by people who were just like, I didn't see them do jack except go to the polls on the election day. Like,
and
what
then
about
in between do nothing?
Yeah, they just sitting around,
Well, listen, we are coming to the end of the show now. I want to put up here, the news as it stands right now. Biden on the verge of 270, which makes you an American president. The Democrat is leading Trump in Pennsylvania, a state that could decide the presidency. I think actually I would like to propose that we outlaw Pennsylvania from existing after this point forward. Maybe leave Philly intact, but make it a suburb of New York or something. I don't know.
We don't want that. Listen, every time people come at Philly, there's talk about backlash. That's what is backlash. Bad things happen to Philly. Yeah, for you, Trump. Bad things happen to Philly for you.
I am not about Pennsylvania right now. They are on some other kind of water that I don't drink. But this is where we are right now, on the verge. As we wrap the show, Freedom Friday, with so much from our family in the comments that I appreciate all of you. Because we have a diverse group of people that add to our comments here. On a serious note, I would love to hear your final takeaway, Selmeki, of this historic week and any perspective that you have for moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a historic week. I think they said that, one, Biden has gotten more votes than, any other candidate in history, if I saw that correctly in the tickler. I do think, it's not over till it is over. And so with this, really being vigilant, I hope, Democrat Biden has, better and more clever lawyers to get around some of the, the judges that, and I saw that they took a couple of defeats, around the country. But what I would say is places like Pennsylvania, you see where the spots of blue in a pretty much red state. It doesn't matter that we're north of the Mason-Dixon line. It doesn't matter. These are the folks who are, in control of, the state. And when you look at the positions of states in the Constitution, when you look at the position of states legally on the daily lives, like, don't forget this when it's time for local elections, statewide elections. Like, this is, when you look at Pennsylvania, you see, a couple of spots of blue in the different counties. Like, this is why many of the conditions, particularly in Philly, are the way that they are. Because yes, Philly politicians have to do much better and they have to be held accountable. But we can't forget that, it's at the state level that wields a whole lot of power, regardless of what happens at the national level. And then my second piece that I would just say is, say Biden wins, it doesn't mean to sit on your ass, continue to stand, continue to push. He needs to be just as feel accountable and challenged and pushed throughout his presidency as well. Don't for a moment think that it's time to rest. There is no time to rest. Rest later. Right now, you fight, including with President-elect Biden.
I love that. There is no time to rest. That is, I think, the T-shirt for today. That is the best, I think, kind of word on where we are right now. My final word on this is we still have 8 million Black children who are going to walk into schools, or not even walk into schools, who are going to try to log in to schools, next week. If they can, who are not going to get an education, who are missing in the system, and in some ways aren't being counted. And a year from now and 2 years from now, they are not going to be accounted for how much they lost in terms of their progress, their social, developmental, and academic progress, how much has been lost, which if you just compound that over time, that means that there is a future Black problem that we already have enough problems today, but there's a future Black problem that is actually being created today that we could either pay attention to or not pay attention to it too. So as we get lost in all the parlor tricks and theatrics of the politics of, of Biden versus Trump, here's a couple of things for us just to look at. Racism hasn't ended. No matter what happens in this election, racism hasn't ended. Systemic racism is still a thing that we're being gaslighted and told isn't really a thing, but it is. and we don't have any hope in any of these political candidates that are about to win right now, that's about to change anytime soon. Police contracts still haven't changed. Teacher contracts still haven't changed. Our social contract with the United States still hasn't changed. So when Sharif, when you say the fight continues, the struggle continues, we can't rest on our laurels. If we had laurels, we don't have no damn laurels. I don't know what a laurel is. What the hell is a laurel? And why are we supposed to rest on them? Is a laurel like a bed? What is a laurel? Somebody help me out here. Tell me what a laurel is.
It's your ass.
Okay, is that what a laurel is? Why don't we just say your ass? You can't rest on your ass. I mean,
we
the bottom line here
believe in freedom cannot rest on your laurels.
There you go, on your laurels, right? I don't know what a laurel is, but what I will say right now is it's the same as it ever was. Our battle that was live last week is still live this week, and it's going to be alive next week and next month. We got to get these kids educated. We got to get Black people some freedom. We got to get over policing out of our lives. We got to get the courts, the schools, the police departments, every apparatus of American white supremacy that has a hold on us right now, either physically or mentally. The real fight that we have is to dismantle all of those things that have a hold on us right now. And a president isn't going to do that. Neither one of these particular presidents for sure isn't going to give us that freedom. So that's my final word on Freedom Friday. I'm amazed that so many people come here and visit us on Fridays and add their family content to our discussion. And I appreciate all of you for it. This makes me sane before I go into a weekend. This is my sanity. Sharif, I appreciate you too, brother. Every week you just like.
Thanks a lot. It's
more therapeutic.
And laurels is actually a plant. And so you were awarded a laurel if you won something. And so then the phrase was, don't rest on your laurels. Like, don't be satisfied with your accomplishment. Just wanted to,
Is that the real definition?
So those, hey, I think it's appropriate, right? Those who, if Biden is the president-elect, you're celebrating. You can't just be satisfied and turn smug and just talk smack to 45, because guess what? As soon as that happens, they mobilizing. What are we going to do?
Well, and I'll end on that note. Like what I said earlier about the physics. If this was if he does leave, just be prepared what the next version of him is.
Version, yeah.
Because he was the next version of David Duke. He was the more polished version of David Duke, believe it or not. So what's going to be the next polished version of Trump that gets elected? So be watching out. Yeah. God bless you all.
Thanks,
live
everyone.
in your power, live in your peace. Don't let anybody make you rest on your laurels, which is a plant, apparently. is apparently a plant.
It might be that thing that they would put around your head. Let's look it up.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you all. And then next week, let's be looking towards possibly doing one on libertarianism. So, Sharif, let's talk about that, brother.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right, y'all. Appreciate you all. You have a great weekend and a